Oh goodness, it's Thursday. Yay! My favorite day of the week. Welcome. I'm just going to give a couple of minutes and seconds, maybe minutes, until all my fans are alerted that I'm going live. It's Thursday. I, of course, do an education session every Thursday at 12 noon South African time. And we are talking about chemistry in the current series. Today is episode 10. Wow, we've come quite a way. Delving into a little bit more hardcore chemistry compared to what you're used to, in particular with essential oils maybe. And I'm trying to shed you some light on why our essential oils work so incredibly well with this particular chemistry series. So welcome. I'm going to just give you a shout out as everyone starts logging in. So let me know when you're there so I can say hi. Catherine is on Insta. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here today. I think you're going to enjoy today's Essential Daily Drops. You're also there. Welcome. Amanda Dirks, all the way on Facebook. So good to have you here today as well. Thank you for logging in. I'm just going to give it another minute or two. I know the numbers are going to start dropping. It's that time of the year. But luckily we're talking about an oil today, or a chemical constituent, I should rather say, that's really going to help you into that parasympathetic state where you are going to start being able to relax, processing, digesting, taking up nutrients, and calming down for the year, or moving towards that at least, so that we can have our very much needed rest for the year. So yes, I just want to check the time. It is now 12 on the dot. So I'm just going to give it another couple of seconds for the last couple of people to log in. And as you're logging in, I'll give you a shout out as well. So welcome. It is episode 10, and today we're talking about eugenol. And eugenol, oh my word, this is an absolutely very powerful, actually quite pungent smelling as well, particular chemical constituent, because it is a monoterpene phenol. Now, for those of you that remember, monoterpene means singular ring, and I'll show you an image just now. But that phenol is what's giving it that incredibly pungent and almost revitalizing and kick up your butt kind of fragrance that we're getting. Specifically, I can see more people are logging in on Facebook. If you want to shout out, say hi so I can see you there in the comments. So eugenol, being a monoterpene phenol, let me show you. I've upgraded. I now have a whiteboard. It might be a little bit shiny. But yeah, the colors have changed, obviously, because now I'm using board markers. So a phenol is an oxygen and a hydrogen, so an alcohol molecule, which is attached, there we go, over there, which is attached to a carbon backbone hexone ring. All right, that's that ring over there, and it's a singular ring, all right? It's not a long chain. There isn't two. I can see Blanche is logged in. Welcome. And Kelly, good to have you on. So basically, just to remind you what that benzene ring is, it's 6 carbons that's in that ring. And for it to be not just a normal carbon ring, but a benzene ring, there actually needs to be double bonds in 3 places. And you can see that quite clearly on there, right? All right, so that is what our eugenol molecule looks like. And that OH is the phenol, right? That is what's giving it the pungency and the kick that we're going to be talking about today. So that is our beautiful eugenol molecule. So eugenol is actually used very extensively in the cosmetic and the food industry as a flavorant, and also because it packs a punch against bacteria and fungi. And we need that in our cosmetics. Oh my goodness, I can even see my hubby is logged in, all the way from wonderful Africa. So great to have you on for a change. No, he's actually there quite often. He just never says hi. I sort of just have to feel and know that he's here. But today he said hi. Really special to have you on. So that eugenol molecule itself is used very extensively. And I found a 2011 study at that stage. I know that's like 10 years ago, right? That's like ages and ages ago. But in a 2011 study, there was already on the market more than 57% of deodorants that contained the molecule eugenol because of its antibacterial and antifungal properties, which is really cool. Although it'll be the synthesized lab version, it won't be the one coming from the plant. And then also 27% of household products, which is really exciting because it just goes to show all of these molecules were originally isolated from plants. That's where they get them from. That's why they know how to make them. And if they were using the real thing, obviously we'll get all the side benefits with that as well. So eugenol is on the chemistry wheel and the emotional wheel, a very restoring chemical constituent. And what that means is the oils that contain the eugenols are offering us huge amounts of emotional, but also physical support. They are meant to help revive, which they will, because this one really kicks, strengthen and rejuvenate the body and the senses. Oh, Jerry's also logged in. Welcome to Instagram and Oil Love Teacher. That's Lisa Human. Welcome, Lisa. Good to have you on as well. So the phenols are a very special subtype of alcohols, that OH that I showed you onto that chemistry image that I just showed you. And the properties of phenol are usually that they're incredibly invigorating, very powerful cleansing. Remember what cleansing means: antibacterial, antifungal, antiseptic, those kind of properties. And it's incredibly high in antioxidant power. So usually the molecules or the essential oils that contain the phenols are very supportive to the cardiovascular and the circulatory system. In other words, the heart and the blood and the veins, the digestive system, which I'll talk a lot about today, gastrointestinal, in other words, immune system, even the nervous system and the respiratory. So you can definitely see that this is a very powerful chemical constituent to have your hands on, because it's going to be very supportive in your body. Let's look at the emotional side first before we get into the physical aspects of what it's going to be supporting your body with in a natural solution format. Emotionally, I'm going to talk particularly about clove oil today, because that is actually the oil that contains the highest percentage of eugenol. So clove helps us to let go of our victim mentality, and it's called the oil of boundaries. So when we feel very powerless to change our situation and feel very overly influenced, I'd say, about what other people and circumstances are doing to us. In other words, that I feel that things are happening to me instead of me just changing the way I react, because what's happening around me has actually got nothing to do with me. And I have the power to be able to disassociate, become disconnected from that in a sense. And the clove oil, because it's so high in eugenol, is actually going to help you to be proactive in this kind of situation. It's going to help us to start feeling capable of making our own choices, and it's going to let us feel that we can start advocating for our right to self-containment. So what I mean there is for our feelings of being complete or even independent, without really being affected by all the nonsense that's going on around us. So this is probably an oil that I should be using a lot more frequently than I am currently. But here's another interesting fact. Adding clove together emotionally now, obviously putting it in a diffuser always for emotions, but adding it together with lime is going to do a lot for your emotions, but also help you with activating that the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic is that fight or flight that we're permanently in at the moment. We want to activate that parasympathetic nervous system. So the one that is allowing us to rest, digest, take up nutrients, heal, all of those things that we are really in so much need of, especially at this time of year in general, but especially with regards to what is still going on out there. Adding those into the diffuser is going to be very proactive in supporting you in that journey to realize that it all actually depends on you. You can be independent. You don't have to be the victim, especially when you're thinking about the emotional side. So very, very, very powerful kick up the butt oil, this I'm definitely going to say. It is a cardiotonic, so it vitalizes the cardiovascular system. It really tones the heart. And it's because it activates the parasympathetic sympathetic nervous system. So it's very immune stimulating at that same side. It stimulates the immune system activity. So increasing, for example, but not a high increase like when you're sick, right? So as a slight increase that we measure, for example, in leukocytes and all the kinds of white blood cells that need to be armed and ready when your immune system needs to be ready for things that are going to be coming in. Dominique, I can see you've just logged in. Welcome, welcome. Good to have you here. And believe it or not, it's not only found in two of our favorite essential oils, which are hot oils, clove and cinnamon, which we'll talk about in a minute. Quibus has just logged in as well. Welcome. And Trisha, really nice to have you on Facebook. It is also found in tiny amounts in coffee, peaches, plums, raspberries, bananas, and red wine. Now, many of the things in that list are things that I consume in quite large amounts. So at least, although I know some of them are stimulants, like the coffee, for example, and are probably very well known for really liking my red wine, there are some good attributes in there. Polyphenols, for example, in the red wine, but also now it contains very small concentrations of eugenol as well. So really exciting for me. Eugenol possesses obviously analgesic properties because of that numbing effect that you feel. So in other words, helping your body to feel less discomfort. It's also hugely anti-inflammatory because it's got incredibly high antioxidant content. Very antibacterial and very antifungal. That's why it's used in the food industry so very often. And of course, in all things teeth and mouth related, you'll find clove in quite a lot of products that are used specifically for dental hygiene. So it's a very interesting bioactive compound because it actually has a lot of, what should we call it? A broad spectrum activity. Let's call it activity and punch against planktonic, what they call planktonic and sessile cells, which in particular belong to food decaying microorganism, but also human pathogens. So there's quite a lot of research being done on using eugenol specifically for biofilm inhibition. So biofilm, remember, that's that protective biolayer that certain bacterial species make to protect themselves against other bacteria, but also against chemicals that we use to kill them, right? And biofilm it's a very strong, it's like a calcified, it's a really strong barrier. And there's not many things that break through that. And basically, eugenol has been shown to be very inhibitive of a biofilm forming for E. coli 0157. And remember E. coli 0157, E. coli's, we have them everywhere, right? They're in our digestive tracts, they're everywhere. But certain of them have variance factors that get switched on. In particular, the 0157H7 strain, that food pathogen, that one has some of its virulence factors that are switched on because of certain things that happen in the environment, right? And the eugenol has been shown to be very effective against that virulence that this E. coli strain might switch onto, right? So in the food industry, eugenol is an incredibly powerful molecule to be using. There's also a lot of research about the dentistry side of the eugenol because it's analgesic. It's got that numbing effect. Remember, if there's something that's a little bit discomforting in your mouth, you can always just pop some clove oil on there. Just be using a tested grade 1, right? The one that you know is true eugenol that hasn't been adulterated with anything else, that there's nothing else added. Otherwise, you might have additional side effects that you didn't bargain on getting, right? But because of that numbing and analgesic benefit and because of the very powerful antibacterial benefit, there's a lot of research in the dental industry using specifically eugenol containing oils and therefore clove, because some of our brands, especially the one that I like, very high concentration of eugenol in there. Conscious Sweet, the Conscious Sweet Pea has joined again. I really like that Sweet Pea name. It's just so adorable. Oh, Quibus is now saying hello to Herman on the side there. Brilliant. It's great that you can see each other in the comments. I can see that Tertia is talking about clove oil there, but it's cut your comment off. So I can't see the whole comment. I'm so sorry. I'll definitely go and read it after the live and respond if there was anything in there particular that you would like me to respond to. All right, so let's just also remember on the safety side, this is an incredibly powerful oil. It's very powerful for the emotions. It's very powerful for the body. And we'll get to all of the amazing things that it's going to do for you. But we do need to talk about the safety because there is a substituted phenol. Eugenol is a very weak acid and therefore it can have a slight corrosive effect. So this is one of those oils together with cinnamon bark, which also, by the way, contains eugenol. It's a hot oil because of the cinnamaldehyde, but also has eugenol. These oils need to be diluted when you use them, and they actually have to be used at a very high dilution rate. And you'll see from the safety, it's very supportive for the body at very low concentrations. But as soon as you start increasing that concentration too much, then it switches completely to the other side, and it's no longer that beneficial for your body. And here, in this case in particular, less is definitely more in your body, and not the true American way where more is better and more is more, right? Here, definitely always go for the smaller, the least amount that's going to have an effect on your body. So it's very supportive in the digestive process, and this is why I really love clove. And this morning when I delved a little bit more into the science on exactly why we say, for example, clove is really good in activating the vagus nerve, we need to remember what the vagus nerve does. It's this highway between the brain, and it's the wandering nerve, right? So it wanders all throughout your body, and it basically connects all of the organs. So it's that communication channel that happens in your body. And a lot of people with digestive issues usually have a vagus nerve that's either overfiring or underfiring, right? Due to various reasons. Completely different session. I could probably talk for 3 hours about the vagus nerve. But what usually happens when we are in fight or flight, and we're in that continuously, so that sympathetic nervous system that's activated, our heart increases, right? Our heart rate, our eyes dilate, our blood moves faster, and your body basically stops digesting, right? So everything just goes and sits in your digestive tract. That's not going to be really good for your body on the one side, because it also decreases your nutrient uptake, but everything else slows down. I can see Bev is also just logged in. Welcome, welcome. You always can catch the beginning in the replay, remember. And subscribe to my YouTube channel. Then you'll always have the videos available. As long as YouTube obviously is there, you'll have access to all the replays as well. Leanne, I can see you've just logged in on Facebook as well. Welcome. So this vagus nerve is incredibly important, because that is what the body uses. That communication is what we need to sort of switch between sympathetic and parasympathetic. In other words, fight or flight, a tiger is chasing me, or in this case, stress because of human life, what happens in the world right now, and switching between that to parasympathetic, where we slow down, the heart rate slows down, our digestive juices start flowing again, and we are able to uptake nutrients a little bit better. So that's the background of that vagus nerve. Now, when we're in permanent flight or flight, we're actually sitting in a situation where the vagus nerve is almost switched off. I'm not going to say completely switched off, because that's oversimplifying, but it is not doing its job properly, right? And the way we then kick it up its butt so it can start communicating again is by exposing it to something like eugenol, for example. So eugenol not only is very good for ulcers, by the way, because it actually increases mucus production, which is very supportive for the body, but it's really good in helping motility, because what basically happens is it slows the heart rate down, because it is helping the body to switch between flight and fight back to relax, digest, heal, nourish. Oh goodness, there's food in my digestive tract. Maybe I should take up all the nutrients again and start nourishing my body. And that is why eugenol is so incredible, and you will always see it being mentioned for digestive support. I think more so though, even than the dental, which we have become so very used to. So how amazing is that? But let's just talk about those protective effects and how supportive it is for the digestive system, because it has to be at a very low concentration. There's a lot of research and results available showing that at 3% or lower, now 3% is very low, right? That's 3 drops of an essential oil in a teaspoon of something like a carrier oil or a lotion, has a very positive effect on hepatic glutathione enzyme levels. Now, hepatic being liver. Remember, glutathione, that is the most powerful antioxidant in the body, or the most abundant, I should rather say, and we need it for all kinds of processes to reduce toxic load, free radical damage. Your body will not survive if we don't have antioxidants in the body. And the ones that we consume through supplementation, for example, is not very well taken up by the body. It gets broken down very quickly. So it's a lot more effective if your liver is doing the job that it's supposed to be doing and producing lots of glutathione. And of course, the limonene in all citrus oils is very supportive in increasing that glutathione production in the liver, but so too is eugenol at a very low concentration, all right? So it increases that glutathione, but at 3% or less. And therefore it becomes very hepatoprotective, so liver protective in a sense. So it really supports a healthy liver. Very high antioxidants and very high in anti-inflammatory power. And we'll talk about that anti-inflammatory when we talk about the skin sensitization, when we compare the 2 oils that do have eugenol in them in a minute. But basically, when you go higher than that 3%, that is when we start having skin irritations, for example, but also at the higher doses, we do find that it becomes pro-oxidant. So it's more capable then of causing toxicity in your liver. There's also toxic or cytotoxicity. In other words, it starts negatively affecting the cells and starts causing tissue damage. So this is one of those oils. Please heed to the instructions when it says hot oil, please dilute, and please dilute appropriately. If you're going to be using a tested grade essential oil because you would like that digestive support, always put it inside a veggie capsule and add carrier oil, and lots of carrier oil. You only need 1 or 2 drops maximum, and then you are going to fill the whole rest of that capsule with a good carrier oil. All right. So always remember that. Very powerful oil, incredibly good benefits, but you do definitely have to dilute and give your liver the support it needs instead of actually damaging it. All right. So let's look at the 2 oils that we do have that have the eugenol in it. The first one is obviously clove, and depending on whose brand you buy and where it's sourced from. Also note that it's the flowers that we get our the clove from, because if they use the stems and the leaves, the eugenol content in there is actually lower and the chemistry completely changes. So when you're using the clove bud specifically, the eugenol concentration is in a specific concentration that your body is going to be finding a lot of support from. It's also where the eugenol is in its highest concentration. So usually it ranges between 63 to 95%. I've actually checked my bottle this morning from source2u.com. That's where a third-party testing lab called the APRC, they publish the lab results for every single batch of oil. And if your company obviously is testing their oil, I should say that. And this particular batch of oil has 81.33% eugenol in there. So very, very high concentration, lots of dilution needed. So that it can be supportive instead of going the wrong way around. All right. Very rich in antioxidants, and clove essential oil is very much known for its internal benefits. So here, flavoring, oral health, obviously. You can add a drop to your toothpaste, for example. It's going to go a really long way in that antibacterial power. Also has that nice numbing effect if there is kind of a discomfort somewhere in your mouth. And it's also really good now that you know, because of the high eugenol, for the digestive benefits, and also therefore your cardiovascular health, and it tonifies the heart, makes it stronger, in other words. In a sense, that's what tonic means. Like when you're toning your muscles with weights every morning, you're building muscle, you're tonifying your muscle. And let's not forget that clove also has beta-caryophyllene in it. And I have already done my chemistry episode on beta-caryophyllene, so please go refer back to that one if you want to know how good beta-caryophyllene is for you. But this particular batch of oil also has 9.79% beta-caryophyllene in it. So this is just an absolute magic. Really got to be one of your favorites in your cupboard oils, okay? Then if we look at cinnamon bark, that's the other one that has the eugenol in it, usually between 1 to 10%. And here, the cinnamaldehyde is usually the one that's in very high ratio compared to the other chemical constituents in the oil. And it likes to be a little bit more irritating to the skin. And because it has the eugenol in there, remember, the eugenol can be irritating if you're not diluting, but it's also anti-inflammatory. So here, the eugenol is working together with the cinnamaldehyde to actually decrease the sensitivity you may feel because of that hot oil. So they work together. So this is just again a reminder. We are always now in this chemistry series talking about the individual benefits of these chemical constituents, but they're always got to be looked at as a whole and what all the constituents in that particular essential oil is doing in supporting your body. Because here you can see where the cinnamaldehyde may be slightly more irritating to the skin, the eugenol is actually going to decrease that slightly because of the anti-inflammatory properties that it has. So just amazing how nature works together, right? These plants grow these essential oils to support their own immune systems and their own plant bodies with healing. And in the process, it can also support your body with whatever it needs to be able to go through that process of finding the root cause and doing what it needs to do. So if you didn't know how to use your clove oil, you do now. You can use, if you got a tested grade oil where you have the lab results and you for sure know that it is a pure oil, you can use it internally, topically, as well as aromatically. The emotional and the physical benefits are incredible. But please remember, especially with a very high eugenol content one like clove, definitely a lot of dilution is required. So thank you so much for joining today. That is my story for Eugenol. Next week, we'll be carrying on with episode 11. And probably we'll see how December goes. Let's see if we can also switch off and have a little bit of a break and do that resting and digesting and assimilating of nutrients through the festive season, but we're not there yet. And if you, oh, by the way, I forgot to say this. If you smell clove, I smell speculoos. So for those of you that are dialing in from Europe, Netherlands, Belgium, speculoos, it's one of those things. When I visited the Netherlands, I was so excited because you don't tend to get those kind of things in South Africa. They had gluten-free, egg-free, dairy-free speculoos in Netherlands when I was there. Cookies, and it was like Christmas for me. Yes, it is. It comes with Christmas time, right? St. Nicholas, that's why it's called that. But for me, it was very exciting because I didn't have to bake my own. I could actually buy something that my body could handle. But this is what Christmas smells to me, like to me. It's that whole speculoos, the cinnamon, the ginger, and the clove that is so very, very prevalent. So very exciting oil to have around. Put it in your diffuser, add some lime. Let's reactivate the parasympathetic nervous system. And by the way, you can also apply it to the back of your ears, just there, that bony part. That is where your thickest part of the vagus nerve is sitting. So if you make a very dilute solution, remember, no, 3% or less with the lime, apply it behind the ears. Let's get those parasympathetic nervous systems activated so we can rest and digest. See you all next week. Looking forward to it. Cheerio.